The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. My name's Jason Longshore. April 10th. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday edition. Be taking your questions throughout the show. Kind of a different show today. John is away in Alabama, and I'm flying solo. Second hour, I'm going to be joined by Mike Conti, by Joe Patrick. So first hour, few things I want to get into, but I also want to answer whatever questions you guys have. That can be around Atlanta United's trip to New England. That can be around MLS as a whole. We already have a couple in the can. Shiva had a question about last night's result, DC United and Montreal Impact. Scoreless draw. Not really an exciting match. Had a chance to hear a little bit of the Montreal radio call on the way back from an event last night, and they were very excited about the youth that Remy Gard played. 6 Canadians in the lineup, a lot of teenagers, and they went and got a result. And for the Impact, that was the last of a run of games away from home. They open up their home schedule at Stade Saputo this weekend, and they had a pretty good run, to be honest. 8 points on the road to start the season. They'll take that. Remy Gard will be happy, and especially with these last couple games without Nacho Piatti getting some results, that's big for the Impact. Nacho Piatti could be back this weekend as they host Columbus. What I wanted to get into first, though, I mentioned yesterday that SB Nation has launched a new women's soccer blog, all411, all4xi.com. Go check that out. It's going to be a great source for women's soccer news. And also The Athletic announced yesterday that they have hired Meg Linehan, who has worked in a number of different roles in women's soccer, was recently with the NWSL. She will be helming their women's soccer coverage at The Athletic. So you have two different, major outlets for soccer in this country that have addressed the need for more women's soccer news and coverage. Awesome stuff. One of the first columns over at All411 was posted earlier, and it's by Stephanie Yang at Thrace on Twitter. Great writer, great follow for women's soccer news. It's an interesting article, and I'm taking it from both the women's soccer perspective and a men's soccer perspective, and honestly from a nonprofit perspective, because it gets into the idea around, should women's soccer be presented as a charity? And Stephanie's article is titled, Are We Still Doing This? Women's Soccer is a Business, Not a Charity. And I'll agree. I completely agree. This all revolves around the Washington Spirit, one of the NWSL teams. They added to their ownership. Steve Baldwin, who is the chief executive at Cubase, has joined the ownership group. Baldwin sent out a statement talking about, joining the group and some of the additions to the team and upgrades and things like that. But then definitely dropped some of the buzzwords, the typical things that I think, Stephanie has seen many, many times, and definitely alarm bells went off for her. And I completely understand it. What's interesting for me is I come at this from a very different perspective because I worked on the nonprofit side and worked on a soccer nonprofit side. For those of you who don't know, I was the chief development officer at Soccer in the Streets here in Atlanta for 10 years and had to go through, actually doing a soccer nonprofit and getting the messaging out there and figuring out how to make all these connections. So I bristle a little bit at it that it's not necessarily a bad thing. And let me get into that a little bit. Here's one passage from the article, and I highly recommend go check it out, all4xi.com, all411.com. This is from Stephanie's article. Community buy-in is good. It helps fans feel like they identify with a team and vice versa, but it shouldn't feel like the team is a cause. When you market your product like a cause, people want to donate once and not think of the cause again. For a sports team, that's a death knell. Clubs need lifelong fans who develop deep emotional attachments on a sporting level. That steady generational commitment that takes it as a given that, of course, people in a certain geographical area are local team fans. Completely agree. The aspect of it that coming from the nonprofit perspective that I think is a little misguided is that when you market the team like a cause that people just want to donate and not think of it again, that's not necessarily true. And this was something that we really worked hard on from the nonprofit perspective. We marketed it as a cause. We pushed for donations and support over a period of time. We did not want the one time, here's a donation, now leave me alone. That's not going to help a charity either. And that's, I think, the perspective of, you don't want to market a professional sports team as a charity. That's the negative side of it. That is the making you feel obligated to support it because it's a cause. And that's not going to work long term, whether you're a charity, whether you're a women's professional soccer team, whether you're a men's professional soccer team. That's not going to work. You should not make soccer fans, whether they are women's soccer fans, men's soccer fans, or just soccer fans. A club cannot come into a market and make soccer fans feel obligated to come out and support. You have to earn that support. You have to earn the trust of a fan to commit themselves emotionally to it. You have to earn the trust of a fan to commit their dollars to it. You can't just say, well, if you support soccer, then you have to support us. That's never going to work, whether you're men's, women's, youth, semi-pro, amateur, whatever. It's not going to work. Now, a good nonprofit, a good charity, doesn't market themselves that way. The aspects of the first part about community buy-in is good. It helps fans feel like they identify with a team. That's how you market it. And honestly, the way Atlanta United has marketed itself as a club from day one kind of took the good aspects of what a nonprofit does. Not that you're making people feel obligated to support, not going and saying, well, you work in a youth club, well, you played soccer, where you're a fan of a team in Europe, you have to support us. It wasn't that. It was, we're building a community here. I can tell you from experience with soccer in the streets that people came on board, and the people who stayed and have helped the organization grow from when I started, working with around 300 kids a year to this last year, the organization worked with 5,000 kids in a year. The budget, I believe, from when I started to now has grown. I want to say by $800,000 or $900,000 a year. It's pretty crazy. That didn't happen because of marketing it like a cause to make people want to donate once and not donate again. It was marketing the nonprofit as building a community and building a soccer community. And it started before you had Atlanta United. Now the organization has been able to build upon that and tap into that community and work with that community and create a sub-community. And it's worked really well. I think there's a huge difference between running the team as a charity and getting the messaging out there like a charity, like a good charity does. You don't want to make people feel obligated, but you do want to build that community. You do want people to buy into a cause. There is a cause. I mean, supporting a team does feel like a cause. You are obligated not out of, anything negative, but you feel like you're part of this. You have to be there. You have to build to that. You don't make people feel, like if they're doing something wrong if they're not there. You want people to feel like they have to be there because they're part of this. They're involved. They're instrumental to it. I think there's just a huge difference between running the team as a charity, which is generally like not thinking about it as a long-term business, not looking at sustainability, just feeling like, well, we have to do this, so we have to pay the players X, we have to do Y. Look, it's a business, and it's not going to survive that way. I think the first women's professional league, the WUSA, the WPS, the second one, those were some of the things that they struggled with. They felt like, well, businesses are going to sponsor us because they have to, because it's the feel-good thing. It's the right thing to do. So we'll be okay. Just it'll come. It'll happen. It'll come. You can't do that because you're going to go out of business, and that's happened twice. And I don't think the NWSL is run that way, and I think the clubs are doing a much better job of building these communities. But the messaging, like a charity, of building a movement, and that was the word that I used a lot with Soccer in the Streets, and it was very intentional. You want to make people feel like they are part of changing things. Soccer in the United States still has that mentality. The fan base still has that mentality of, we're changing something here. Major League Soccer is not the NFL. It's not Major League Baseball. It's not the NBA. I think it's absolutely on a par with the National Hockey League, and it really depends market to market how that looks. But hockey fans have the same perspective, I think. You are advocating for your sport. You are, an evangelist for your sport in a lot of ways. So that isn't all that different from charity messaging, from a nonprofit message that goes out there. Honestly, I think you can look at it a couple different ways. I think women's professional teams do need to be run more like a business. I'm not worried about the messaging of it and some of the community building that goes around it. That can have a very charitable nonprofit feel, but it has to be run like a business in a sustainable way. You have to look to increase revenues in a business way. You can't expect your revenues to, be based upon companies or fans feeling like, well, they have to support this because their girls play, or they have daughters, or they want to just provide role models for the community. They can't think that way when you're running the business. You have to think of it as, all right, how can we maximize revenues? How can we continue to grow? How can we get more fans in the building? How can we create more season ticket holders? How can we get on TV? How can we get that media push? And you're not going to get that long-term media push by presenting it as, you have to cover this because of role models, because of women's sports, and you just have to do it. You have to do it because it's the right thing to do. That's not going to work. And you will get that short-term coverage, and then it will go away. You have to present it from a women's sports perspective, I think, as a sport. And I think fans are ready for that. And I think that men's soccer fans will look at it differently if it's just presented as a sport. Now, honestly, on the men's side, I think men's professional teams could be looked at and should look at things more as a nonprofit type of messaging, a charity messaging, than strict business. Because I don't think every Major League Soccer team has done a good job of building that community and building that movement. I think some, you don't have that feel around a club, period. Look at Chicago, for example. The issues they've had with their supporters groups, and it has not felt like a community. I think New England has that to a degree. Atlanta, absolutely. You feel like you're part of something special if you're part of the fan base. Cincinnati, you feel like you're pushing soccer forward in that city, and you're out there telling people, come, this is fun. You need to be here. That's not happening across the board. I think MLS, USL Championship, USL League One teams, USL League Two, NPSL, UPSL, everybody, if you're going to charge tickets, you're going to ask for people to give you money to come watch your product, you have to present a good product. But you also want people to feel like they are supporting something. That part, I don't think men's teams do well enough at times. Women's teams, I think they do have to look at some of the things that men's teams have done. It's not all or nothing about, are we still doing this? Is it a business? Is it a charity? I don't think it's one or the other. I think there are things to look at from both sides. That's where soccer is in this country. It's especially where women's soccer is in this country. I feel like, we talked about it a lot yesterday. The NWSL is in a really strange spot at the moment. If you didn't see the news last night, Tony Novo, the general manager of Sky Blue FC, resigned, but then other reporters are saying that he was fired. The statement came out from Sky Blue that he resigned and wanted to make him look good at the end of it. The supporters groups around Sky Blue had wanted him to be away from the club for quite a while. all that's happening a few days before the season opener. That's not, and that's where it can't look that way. That's where it's not looking like a business. It's not looking like it's professionally run. And, I mean, my joke has been that the NWSL's had 8.5 teams because of the way Sky Blue's been run. This doesn't help that. Hopefully, it is a step back to take 2 steps forward. But why didn't this happen before? Why didn't this happen a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago? Why is it all last minute? This is the part of where the NWSL is, where it does need to be run more like a business. There should be more preparation for the upcoming season. There should be better communication out there. There has to be. You know, it shouldn't be a surprise that SB Nation and The Athletic are committing resources to covering the women's game. The NWSL should be out there to a point where it's easy to cover and it's something that should be covered. And I do think it should. Don't get me wrong. It needs to be. It's a quality professional league. It's one of the best women's professional leagues in the world. Maybe not the best, but it's one of the best. And, you know, they have shown, I think, that they are going to come out of all this. But the question now for me about the NWSL is not survival, but how big can it get? I agree with Stephanie that you do need more teams that are run like a business, but don't lose that nonprofit mentality. Don't lose that messaging like a charity. Don't lose selling it as a movement, as a cause. You want fans to be invested. One of the things that, you know, watching it here firsthand with Atlanta United was that Atlanta United fans and supporters and the supporters groups, I think, felt an ownership and felt like they could make or break this team. They felt like they were part of it. They weren't in the front office. They felt like they were part of it. And they went out and spread the gospel in a way. You want that on the women's side. You don't want that from again, and I agree, you don't want it from the perspective of people. You don't want people to come one time because they feel like they should. It's the right thing to do and then not come back. You want people to come and you want them to get hooked because you want them to feel like they're part of it. To do that, once you get them in the door, you have to present a quality product. You have to present a team and a match day experience that you want to come back to. You feel like you got your money's worth. Because that's the same thing on the charity side. Absolutely. People want a return on investment. And I feel like where we started to really grow with Soccer in the Streets was when we stopped looking at a donation just as a donation, and we started looking at what was after the donation. What is that return? You know, yeah, there are people who can just give you money and that's all, and they just want to do something that feels good to them short term, and that's it. The overwhelming majority of people who donated would donate $20 or would donate and then volunteer at an event or commit to playing in an event that had a fundraising component to it, and then they would spread the gospel about Soccer in the Streets and all the work it was doing. But they did that because they felt like they got something out of it. From a business perspective, it's pretty easy. You want people to come in, buy that ticket. Simple. You want people to commit to watching the match on TV or on Yahoo Sports in this case. But then you want them to feel like they can't miss the next one. That's not just a business perspective. That is also part of building that community, and that's what good charities do. So my advice would be, it doesn't have to be business or charity. There are lessons to learn from both. And I think both professional teams on the men's side and on the women's side need to look at both sides of it. Because there are women's teams like the Portland Thorns who have built that community around that team, that Chicago Fire, that New England Revolution, that the Colorado Rapids would kill for. They would love to have that feeling around their club. There's also women's professional teams that are just not running a professional way on a consistent basis. They would learn from well-run men's professional teams. They're not that different. there's lessons to be learned from both, but it's not business or charity. I think there's aspects to learn from both sides, and I'm really hopeful that these types of conversations do spark one, more interest in the NWSL and women's soccer as a whole, but also I hope that women's teams are reading Stephanie's piece and are reading some of the pieces out there about, look, we want you to talk to us like any other sports fan. We want you to treat us that way. Yes, we are bought into the cause. We understand that. We do want this to be a big deal. But that can't be your only messaging. None of this is easy, and I think we all see that from time to time when teams struggle and when things go wrong, and there's all kinds of ways of looking at it. I'd love to hear what you guys think out there. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here, and we'll get into it as we go this morning. But we're going to take a quick break. Up next, we're going to talk about a match tonight on national TV. Atlanta United 2 on ESPN News tonight against Memphis 901. Get you set for that. We'll talk a little bit about the USL Championship right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. Jason Longshore flying solo, hour number 1. Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game. Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer and 92.9 The Game when it comes to your baseball coverage. Maybe we'll talk a little bit of Braves with Joe in hour number 2. But tonight, Atlanta United 2 goes on the road in USL Championship play against Memphis 901 FC. And for those of you who don't have ESPN Plus yet, first, why? Because you need it. It's worth it. It's $4.99 a month. I wish they were giving me a cut of how much we talk about it, but they're not. It's just a great product. Your MLS out-of-market games are there. Your USL Championship games are there. Your USL League One games are there. In addition to the English Championship, the Danish League is on there. The Australian League is on there. The Chinese League is on there. The Indian League is on there. Serie A. Sorry, Nick Alifi. So many different leagues are on ESPN Plus. It's definitely worth the money. But if you don't have it, you haven't had a chance to get out to Fifth Third Bank Stadium in Kennesaw to see Atlanta United 2 this season, if you get ESPN Plus on your cable, you will have a chance to watch Atlanta United 2 tonight against Memphis 901 FC. Memphis 901, expansion year in USL Championship. Really, I think a symbol of the growth of the USL Championship. Memphis has come in and they're getting some of that movement that we just talked about in the last segment. They're getting some of that around the game in their city. 1-2-2 on the field, it's a little up and down, as you would expect from an expansion team. They beat Bethlehem Steel a couple of weeks ago. They lost on the road to New York Red Bulls 2, which is a difficult opponent, on March 29th. Over the weekend, they drew with North Carolina FC, which is a very good point to earn. They get Atlanta United 2 coming to town this weekend. Atlanta United 2 1-2-1 so far in 4 matches. I'm curious to see what Atlanta United 2 looks like in their second game on the road. Last time they went on the road, it was a crazy, wild 3-3 draw in Charlotte where Romario Williams scored 2 goals early. Charlotte scored 3 goals late in the second half, and then Williams found a third one deep in stoppage time to equalize. You don't want to see that side of Atlanta United 2. Not the 3 goals given up. The goals coming? Yeah, you'd like to see that. You did not see any over the weekend. A 2-0 loss to St. Louis FC, who is on top of the USL Championship Eastern Conference right now. They haven't lost this season. They're 4-0-1. Very strong defensively. But when you go back and look at the game from the weekend, I thought Atlanta United 2 played very well. I thought they were dangerous. They created over 20 shots, 5 on target, and controlled the game even in the first half where they conceded twice. It was a penalty call that every replay I saw of it looked worse and worse. And if you had video assistant referees in the USL Championship, that one could have come back. Second goal, possibly an offside shout. I thought it was a situation where Albert Deekwa, the forward for St. Louis, was in an offside position. He did give himself up and got out of the play after taking multiple steps towards the ball, which is kind of involved in the play. But anyway, and then Russell Cicerone pounces on it. 1v1 with George Campbell, Atlanta United Academy center back, who's played every match so far with Atlanta United too. Campbell did a pretty good job on Cicerone, but he cut him back, left-footed shot, got through Campbell, got past Alec Can. Atlanta United 2 played well. I think they look definitely further along this year than they did last year. Results are important. They're not the only thing with this team. And if you haven't seen them this season and you're thinking about watching tonight, a couple things to watch for. You want to watch for Anderson Asayadu. I'm expecting he'll play in the middle of the field tonight. He looks like a rookie in his first professional year. Inconsistent. You'll see a very good second half from him, and you'll see a first half that it's a little loose. I thought on Saturday he looked like a typical rookie in that he struggled to find the pace of the match early on. As he did, he looked pretty good. Once he got up to speed, once he played a little quicker, he played well. Very technical, good engine, works hard, not going to be intimidated by guys who are bigger than him. I think it's a really good draft pick that Atlanta United made, picking up Asayadu late in the Super Draft. I think he could play a role for Atlanta United as the year goes on. He's not ready yet. He's not putting together 90-minute performances just yet to be in that situation, but I think he has it in him. Watch out for him in the middle of the park. George Campbell, who I mentioned before, he's raw. He hasn't been playing in the back, honestly, that long. He came into Atlanta United's academy as a midfielder, was converted to a center back, and when you see him, you will understand why. He's a big boy. Good player. Still makes some of those young type of mistakes that happen from time to time. I think he's still kind of getting accustomed to playing 90 minutes at this type of intensity. But he's a really promising player for the future. Atlanta United has a few of those guys in their academy right now who are not on pro deals yet. Campbell has committed to going to the University of Maryland. Just so you know, that doesn't mean they can't sign him as a homegrown player. We see it happen a lot, actually. He can play, and this is where USL Championship's a little confusing for some. He has not entered college yet. He's committed. He has not started college yet. And he is not on a pro deal. So he can play in the USL Championship on an amateur contract. Once he starts in college, he can't play on an amateur contract because that would lose his eligibility. It's a weird, silly rule that the NCAA has. It's something that I do think they need to look at as the professional soccer game grows and the academies grow, and it's just awkward for players. But Campbell can play in the USL Championship until he enrolls at Maryland. There's always a chance he doesn't enroll at Maryland. There's a chance that he signs a professional deal before that. But he's committed. And honestly, if he plays in the USL Championship this year, goes to Maryland, plays a freshman year at Maryland, and he gets, at Maryland, he's going to get 20 to 24 matches in a very short period of time. He could get, up to about 20 games in the USL Championship before he goes to Maryland. That's a pretty good year for George Campbell. And then at the end of that, he could sign a professional deal ahead of the 2020 season if he feels like he's ready. If he's not, he could go back to Maryland for another year, another 2 years, another 3 years. You could still sign him to a homegrown deal because he's met the homegrown requirements of time in the academy. You could sign him before the draft, before he is draft eligible. We've seen that happen from time to time with players in this league. George Campbell's another one to watch. Will Vent is another one to watch. He made the trip, according to his Instagram. And Vent is a player who, last year you'll remember there was talk about a recruiting battle, and we know all about recruiting battles down here in the South. Will Vent was recruited to come to Atlanta United after leaving England. He was part of Manchester United's academy, kind of prestigious, kind of a nice place to be. He comes to Atlanta. Did not factor into USL last year. He didn't get here until, I want to say, the end of September, early October. So there were only a handful of games that would have been possible. It would have been rushing him a bit. He was part of the Mercedes-Benz tournament over in Germany back in January, the six-a-side indoor tournament. That was a great showcase for Atlanta United and where their academy is. He has played off the bench for Atlanta United too so far, in the middle of the field. What I like about him a lot is his confidence. He's not afraid of anything. He's not afraid to try stuff, and not from a dribbling perspective, but from a passing perspective. And he does it in the right parts of the field too. That's what I like, is that he's not turning the ball over in his own half very much. When he tries that Hollywood pass that Alex Ferguson used to talk about with David Beckham a lot, when he goes for that Hollywood ball, it's in a spot in the field where if it doesn't come off, you're going to be okay. You're not in a bad turnover situation. You're not in a bad transition situation. He has a very good range of passing, and he just has a little bit of an aura around him on the field. He has that confidence. He has a little bit of that swagger. For a young player who is an academy player, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. Lagos Kunga made his first appearance of the 2019 season over the weekend as a substitute. Looked rusty, understandable. He's been ill. He has not played this season at all. He just came back into training in the last couple of weeks. He's on a first-team deal. I thought he grew a lot in the USL last season with Atlanta United too. I thought he finished really strongly, was becoming more of that complete player that I think the club is looking for from him. We know his 1v1 ability. We know what he can do in the final third. You need to see that complete game from him. Can he defend? Can he get stuck in a little bit as needed? Is he physical enough? I think you're seeing those things come from him. This illness set him back a little bit. He's got to fight for time. He's got to earn it. I do want to see how Atlanta United 2 handles the situation with a first-team game this weekend. Now, they also play at home on Saturday night. They host North Carolina FC. But do you see guys get minutes with Atlanta United 2 tonight who could factor into the trip to New England? That's a tricky situation for both Stephen Glass with the twos and Frank de Boer, because there's guys who you would like to see get some minutes. There's guys who you would like to see get a little bit of playing time tonight. But you also don't want to wear them out for New England. You also don't want to see them get injured for New England. George Bello returned to training this week. That would be a concern, even though he needs minutes to go play. John Gallagher, I thought it was very interesting that he did not play on Saturday night. He was not part of the 18. He's been, in my opinion, Atlanta United 2's best player. He did make the trip to Columbus with the first team. He was not in the 18. Could he be a possibility with Franco Escobar training, but maybe not 100%? Could John Gallagher factor into the discussion at right back for the first team? Does he play tonight? It's going to be interesting to see how this gets managed. If you have not seen Atlanta United 2, highly recommended. There will be academy players in the mix. There will be other young players in the mix. Dion Pereira has looked really good for the twos at times. Does Andrew Carlton play again tonight? I think his maturation continues. You get to see it week after week. I thought last Saturday was one of his best performances. He just didn't get that final product that resulted in a goal. Everything else, really good. He's getting so much more comfortable dealing with pressure. Pressure of performance, pressure in a match, pressure overall. I think Carlton is getting more comfortable in those situations. When you look at Memphis, they're more of a veteran team. Mark Birch leads them with 2 goals this season. They have 5 on the year. Birch, longtime veteran of Major League Soccer. He's one of the leaders of this group. Elliot Collier, who was with the Chicago Fire, very good individual 1v1 player. Adam Najim, who came out of the Red Bulls Academy. Rashawn Daly, who's an MLS player on loan. You're starting to see some differences in the USL Championship between the independent teams that are more veteran-laden with guys like Mark Birch, Najim, who's been around a while, Collier, who's played a little bit in MLS, but mid-20s, and the affiliate teams for MLS teams, who are generally very young. Tacoma Defiance has been playing Danny Leyva, who just signed a homegrown deal for Seattle. Leyva's 15. He made his debut late last season. He started 4 or 5 games for the Tacoma Defiance, the affiliate for the Seattle Sounders. You're seeing that difference, and this is something long-term that I'm really curious to see how the USL Championship handles it. There's a lot of value, I think, for both sides to partner. USL Championship teams get stronger opponents. They get to play more games in a season, obviously, and they get that support of Major League Soccer, I think, interest. Their players get that spotlight a little bit. The MLS affiliate teams, it's so much better than being in a reserve league. That's how you used to have to do this if you were an MLS club back in the late 2000s. You had a reserve league that played, if the MLS match was on Saturday night, usually the reserve league game was on Sunday morning, and sometimes teams had to get front office staff to hop in to fill out games. It wasn't competitive in that way. This is competitive. This league has been great for an Andrew Carlton because he's had to perform against opponents who are making a living at this, trying to make a living at this. A guy like Mark Birch, who is hanging on to a career, still playing. He's not going to take it easy on a kid. He's going to go in with a pretty strong tackle on a kid. And you're doing it in front of fans, and you're doing it and you have to deal with pressure. You're doing it where you have to travel. Lots of different elements. I think USL Championship has grown because of the partnership. That's why they have so many teams now. I think that's one reason the league is on ESPN+. That's why it is getting games on ESPN2, on ESPN News. I think the affiliation with Major League Soccer has been very good for the USL Championship. I think it's been very good for Major League Soccer. It's been very good for player development across the country. Where does it go from here? Now that you have a USL League One, I think there will be a little bit of settling out. We've seen Orlando bring their team back into USL League One. We've seen Toronto drop their team from USL Championship to USL League One. And we've seen Dallas launch a team in USL League One. We've seen others stay in the USL Championship. Atlanta, Red Bulls, Seattle, Portland, so on and so forth. LA Galaxy. I think it's an individual club decision, but right now the partnership has benefited everybody. That's a great partnership. Can it continue to do that? I think it can for quite a while, but I think there will be some clubs that will drop down to USL League One because they would rather be in that situation where maybe it's a little easier for some of the second teams from MLS teams because you're getting some serious competition from clubs like St. Louis, who, your average age of the St. Louis team, off the top of my head, is probably 27, 28. Atlanta United 2's average age on the weekend, probably 20, maybe 21. It's a big difference. I think it's a good thing, though. I think it's a good thing overall. I think Atlanta United 2 players get better by playing those types of matches, and I hope that St. Louis as a club, and I hope that clubs like St. Louis are getting value out of those matches. I see some fans say that they're not excited about these games, but I've not seen a study to say that Memphis, for example, that they're going to draw less tonight than they would for a match against St. Louis. I haven't seen where fans are saying, I'm not going to that game because it's a reserve team. Haven't seen any of that yet. Until that happens, I think the partnership is good and beneficial for everybody. Let's take a break. We'll get into some of your questions. We'll get into some Atlanta, New England talk right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, April 10th. Jason Longshore with you this morning. Mike Conti joining at 10 o'clock. Joe Patrick joining at 10:30. We'll get into Atlanta and New England with those guys. You guys are chiming in on a Wall Pass Wednesday with some questions, with some comments. So let's start with John Nason. I have to apologize to one of the John with no H cabal that is part of the SDH universe. Sky Bet League One is also on ESPN Plus. John's beloved Coventry City is on Easter Monday at 7:30 a.m. And I know John will be watching. Add that to the list. You have MLS, you have USL Championship, you have USL League One, you have the US Open Cup. Okay, I think that's all the American properties that's on ESPN Plus. You have the Championship. You have some Sky Bet League One, not every match, but some. You have League Cup, I think, is on ESPN Plus from England. I think the Carabao Cup was on ESPN Plus. You have Serie A. I want to say, I don't think the German Cup is. I think there was something from Germany that ended up there. The Dutch League is there. The Danish League is there. I think at least one of the Scandinavian leagues is on there. Maybe the Russian league's in there too. I'm trying to think who else is in there. It's crazy to keep up with where the different leagues are being broadcast. ESPN Plus also jumped on Australia, on China, on India. I don't think they had the J League. I don't think anybody has the J League in the United States. That's actually a little surprising. I thought that would be one. Maybe they get on ESPN Plus. I might be wrong. But that would be one that's out there that would make sense. You know, you have BN Sports with La Liga, with Ligue 1. You have the Bundesliga with Fox. You have the South American leagues that here in the States you watch on Fanatis.com. You get Argentina, you get Colombia. Brazil is on Goal TV, which is still around. It's weird. Like Uverse dropped Goal TV years ago, but it still shows up in the listings. You can't watch it. Just really, mean to have it there, and you can't actually watch it. They have Brazil. I think they have Uruguay as well. Mexico, we know in Spanish is in Univision and the different Latin networks. I would love to see, and this is something that I would absolutely lobby for, I'd love to see more coverage of Liga MX in English. I'd love to see more coverage of South American leagues in English. I love that BN Sport has the Copa Libertadores and the Copa Sudamericana now. Love to hear Kevin Egan call Libertadores matches and want to see more of that coverage, because I think that's one reason why there isn't as much talk in English language media and English-speaking fans about teams from Mexico, about teams from South America, because the coverage is just not quite as accessible. I'll watch it in Spanish. I'm trying to get better with that. I'm trying to learn more. But it is easy to say, well, I'm going to watch England. I'm going to watch, whatever leagues are available in English, because that's what's easier for me. I hope that Liga MX, you're starting to see more teams with English language social media accounts. I hope they're finding value in that. And I hope that value continues to grow to the point where they feel like, you know what, we need to provide English language coverage of our team, of the match, whether it's a English language radio that's on their website or English language TV. You're seeing Tijuana Xolos do a good bit of that, which makes sense. They're right over the border from San Diego. Love to see more of that. Santos Laguna has been one who has really pioneered a lot of that in Mexico. So, John, I just took your comment and twisted it into something completely different. But yes, Sky Bet League One in Coventry City is on ESPN Plus. Today we will learn the Gold Cup draw, and we will learn the groups and the schedule. Bartimus Prime had a question. What's the actual benefit of playing one-off Gold Cup matches in Costa Rica and Jamaica? What does this mean for future tournaments? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what the benefit is, other than you're going to get a doubleheader at the Estadio Nacional in San Jose, Costa Rica. That will be packed. There will be money made. Costa Rica will be involved in it. That's cool. Whoever has to play Costa Rica in that kind of stinks. Same in Jamaica. You'll get a big match in Kingston. You'll get a big crowd. It'll be very cool for Jamaica to get to host that. Whoever plays them has a difficult time. I don't know what it means for future tournaments. I totally understand from a CONCACAF perspective having the tournament in the United States. It's where the money is going to be. It is a business after all. We talked about that in the first segment. There is a business component to all of this, and where are you going to make more money? I don't think you're going to anywhere else in CONCACAF. I do think from a competitive standpoint, though, you need to consider other options. Now, Mexico could host a CONCACAF Gold Cup. They kind of sort of did in 93, although there were games in the United States. The final was at the Estadio Azteca, and Mexico blitzed the United States in that one. Canada could host a Gold Cup on their own. Mexico, United States, Canada could all host Gold Cups on their own. I don't know if there's another country that could host it on their own, but you could pair some up. You could have a Caribbean CONCACAF Gold Cup. That'd be pretty cool. I'd be down for that. You could have a Central American CONCACAF Gold Cup. I'd be cool with that. It'd be good for the United States men's national team as well. It would be good to get some of these competitive games in a Gold Cup scenario on foreign soil and have to deal with that. How often do we see that in World Cup qualifiers, when you're going to a Honduras or a El Salvador or Costa Rica, struggle dealing with the situation? We see it in CONCACAF Champions League as well. More competitive games in these situations are going to help. Now, what's interesting is, so the Gold Cup, I don't know, Bart, maybe it's a test run for future tournaments to see if Costa Rica could handle more games than just one doubleheader. Maybe Jamaica could handle it as part of a group. I'd love to see the tournament be hosted in different places. We'll find out what this tournament looks like. 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific, Univision Deportes and Fox Sports Go will have the draw, and they are now terming it as a draw. It'll be at the Bank of California Stadium in L.A. You know the 4 seeds. You know who else is in it. This is the first time it's a 4-group, 16-team tournament. Top 2 teams in each group go to the quarterfinals. No third-place teams advance. Previously, it had been 12 teams in 3 groups of 4. I like that there's 16 CONCACAF teams who get to be part of this. You're going to have some blowouts, though. If the United States or Mexico are drawn with Guyana, that's going to be a blowout. If they're drawn with Curacao, Bermuda, that could easily be a blowout. But you have to do that to get to where you want to go. You want those countries to be more competitive. You want the game to grow over the whole region. CONCACAF is unique, I think, in the world of soccer with powerhouses like the U.S. and Mexico, and Canada should be. A Costa Rican team that is very, very good and has had great success at the World Cup. And then very small federations, very small FAs who don't get better if they don't get a chance to mix with the U.S. and Mexico. Now, what I want to get into after the break is what CONMEBOL is doing with the Copa America, because they had an approval of a new format starting in 2020. That was approved yesterday. We'll get into that after the break, because I could see a scenario where there is much more interaction between CONMEBOL and CONCACAF as part of the Copa America. We saw it with the Centenario. I think we're going to see it with 2020, and I think it's only going to grow down the road as things move forward. Hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Final segment, hour number 1. Soccer Down here, April 10th. Mike Conti of 92.9 The Game joining on the other side of the break. We're talking Gold Cup in the last segment. Bart's question about games in Costa Rica and games in Jamaica and what that means for the Gold Cup going forward. I'm interested to see. I'm really interested to see what happens with the Copa America going forward. CONMEBOL announced yesterday that the 2020 Copa America, and yes, there is a 2019 Copa America this summer. It's in Brazil. It's the last time it will be in the odd-numbered years. It will move forward in the even-numbered years, 2020. Every 4 years after that, it will run alongside the European Championship. I love that. I love the opportunity to watch games from Europe in the morning and afternoon and watch games from the Copa America in the evening during the summer. Very, very cool opportunity here to grow the game overall. Love it. This is going to be a different format, though. And again, it's a business. We all know that. So you're going to have more matches in the upcoming format because it's 2 groups of 6. You're going to play 5 group stage games. And all that's going to do is eliminate 4 teams. So from 12 teams, you're going to play everybody plays 5 group games. Then the top 4 in each group will go on to the quarterfinals, a semifinal, and a final. It's a lot of games to eliminate a third of the tournament. All right. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think you're going to get a lot of competitive matches. That's cool. You divided it up in a Zona Norte and a Zona Sur, a North group and a South group. And you get, let me get your list of teams. In the North Zone, it's in Colombia, and that will include Colombia, Brazil, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, and 1 guest nation. The South group will be in Argentina, and that will include the hosts, and Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Chile, and 1 guest nation. Previously, the reporting had been that Mexico and the United States would be those guests. So that's 12 teams. I could easily see this tournament turning into more of what the Centenario was, which is a collaboration between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL to grow overall the tournament. Get it to 16 teams, add 4 more CONCACAF teams. I think CONCACAF still needs to do the Gold Cup. And this is the question for CONMEBOL. You know, do they want to have CONCACAF do their own tournament but then also participate in theirs? I don't know how that's going to get sorted out, because you're never going to see, at least anytime soon, you're never going to see a Curaçao qualify to make a Copa America. It's just not going to happen. They need that Gold Cup. They need more than a CONCACAF Nations League, although that will help. They need that Gold Cup opportunity. Can the Gold Cup be a way for teams outside of your big boys? Because CONMEBOL wants Mexico. They want the United States in the tournament. They want to host games in Mexico and the United States as well. That's where the business is going for them. But CONCACAF wants to create the opportunity where a Jamaica can qualify, where a Costa Rica can qualify. It was a big deal to have the Copa America Centenario a couple of years ago. I think it opened a Pandora's box that you're not going to be able to completely shut. This Copa America in 2020 is a good step for CONMEBOL. I like that there's a lot of games in it. If you're the U.S. men's national team, you have to love getting the opportunity to play 5 competitive matches in a tournament. That's great. I want to see this format evolve, though. I want to see more collaboration between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. We're going to take a break. We'll have Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game join us right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer Down here, April 10th. Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game joining the party. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Jason. What's up?
Not much. We have talked about Copa America 2020 in the last segment. Have you heard about this yet?
No, what specifically? I've heard that a tournament will play, but I don't know much about that.
Potentially the U.S. and Mexico will be the guest teams in it, and the format's really different. It's 2 groups of 6, so you're going to play 5 group games, and then that's only going to eliminate 2 teams from each group. Then you'll go to a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a final.
Sounds like a money grab to me.
Oh, it's definitely a money grab. Oh, for sure. But for the U.S., those games, really valuable.
Huge opportunity, absolutely. Especially if you get stuck in a group with, I would assume they'd probably put USA and Mexico in opposite groups. But
yes,
like if you get thrown into a group with, I don't know, Peru, Chile, Paraguay, and I don't know, Argentina or something like that. I mean, it'll be a good challenge. It'll be a good test. Berhalter will have had the team for probably 18 months by that point. And the fact that so many teams would make it out of group would probably increase the chances of them getting in a knockout. So just the quantity of matches, forget the quality of the matches, the quantity of what they would be able to play would be really, really helpful. And then, of course, at the same time, you've got Jason Kreis trying to get the U23s into the Olympics. So it'll be a very exciting summer next year.
Yeah, I think it's going to all start this summer with the Gold Cup, where things really get real for Berhalter, and then you get into Olympic qualifying. You've got a U20 World Cup, all that stuff coming up. But before you get to any of that this summer, you have Atlanta United in a very busy stretch of the season. Is it just me, or has this year felt really weird with the stop-start nature of it?
Yeah, no, it's not just you. It almost feels like the season just completely came to an end after the Philadelphia match. Yeah. Because I don't count what happened in Columbus as real soccer, as real football, to use Frank de Boer's term. So it feels to me like we've gone 3-4 weeks without having any kind of legitimate soccer for Atlanta United. And as I look at the standings now, I look at all of these teams that have played 6 games, all of these teams that have scored, 7, 8, 9, 10 goals. And here's Atlanta United having played 4 games and only 2 home games. In fact, I think Atlanta United, only Montreal and Portland have played fewer home games than Atlanta United at this point, and they haven't played any. Montreal hasn't had a single home match yet, nor has Portland. It feels very, very chopped up. Almost like he had a mini season with Herediano, Monterrey, and the 3 league matches. I don't count Columbus. Now we're going into season 3.2, I guess, because now it really gets real. I mean, now you have a ton of matches. You've got matches the next 4 weekends, and then you go into the May craziness where you're going to Vancouver, then New York, then an RSL, then coming back before Open Cup to play Chicago. I think you have Toronto in there off the top of my head. I mean, you've got a lot to come. And kind of like what we talked about with Copa America, I think the quantity of the matches, I know we had been complaining about match compression at the very beginning of the year, but I think it's different now because Atlanta United has had a couple weeks to be together, to train together. There's probably a little bit more urgency now because they have dug themselves a little bit of a hole in league play. So I'm actually looking forward to what's to come, where you're going to see 10 matches over the next 50 days. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think the quantity of matches will be useful for this club. And I think to an extent useful for Frank de Boer to make some decisions and determine, okay, who fits best where, and with the injuries that you have, especially on the back line, what are the viable options now to plug some of these holes short term? And I think the next 3 matches in particular being winnable on paper gives you a little bit of leeway, a little bit of flexibility to tinker try some things, see how they work, and then you feel like you're really on firm footing going into that May 5th match at SKC, which will be the next really, really big, difficult road test for Atlanta United. Not to say Saturday in New England won't be, but playing SKC on the road is a much different animal than playing New England and Foxborough.
What's the pressure like, do you think, on Frank DeBoer and on this team going into Saturday night in New England?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on Stoppage Time today. I think you made a really good point on Stoppage Time last week about how the league schedule is forgiving. Atlanta United will have plenty of time to play their way into the top 7. They've only played 4 matches right now. They have 2 matches in hand on just about everyone over the line, other than Toronto. Toronto's over the line. They have 4 matches. Everyone else over the line has 6. So, again, I don't look at Saturday as must-win because you don't truly have a must-win until your season ends with a loss. I think it's a need to win, but I think more importantly, it's a need to score goals. If you go up there and you pull a 2-2 draw with them, you want to win, but I want to see goals more than anything. I can accept a 2-2 draw up there. I think, Jillian Gressel was on 92.9 this morning, and John Fricke kind of asked him a similar question to what you asked me. And Jillian basically said, hey, look, we've put ourselves in this position. Now we've got to play our way out of it. So I don't necessarily know if it's pressure, but I think it's awareness that they've got to start putting some stuff together pretty soon. For Frank DeBoer, I don't know how much attention he really pays to what fans and the media are saying about him or about this club. But I have to think that he's starting to feel something because of what happened in his last 2 stops. And I'll go to my grave saying that Atlanta United is in a much, much more functional position than Crystal Palace ever will be. But when Frank came here in January, Carlos had talked about he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because of the way things went down at Palace and at Milan. Well, now you're, 3.5 months into having control of this club. You haven't really gotten the results that you've wanted yet. I don't think they're as bad as some people are making them out to be because there is some selective overlooking of the positive things that they did in CONCACAF Champions League for those who only want to dwell on league play. But I'm sure he probably feels it because there was a quick trigger in the last 2 places where he managed, where he got off to slow starts. I don't think it'll be the same here. But, does he have any PTSD from what happened at Palace? Does he have any PTSD from what happened in Inter Milan? Guess we're going to find out. But I think Atlanta United's in way, way better shape than a lot of people have made it out to be. And I think the fact that they haven't played a real match where conditions were neutral in almost a full month has almost made us forget the positive steps that they were taking against Philadelphia Union as far as chance creation. The positive steps they were taking even in Columbus on a true pitch before it really, really got wet, where they were creating chances, limiting Columbus, holding possession. I mean, I really feel like it's so, so close. And the fact that they've played but once in the last, 26, 27 days has made us kind of forget that a little bit.
Do you feel like if it was Ronald DeBoer instead of Frank DeBoer in charge, that there would be a different reaction right now?
No question about it. I think from some, no question about it. And again, I don't think it's fair to hold what happened to him at Crystal Palace against him because it's Crystal Palace. When do we ever talk about Crystal Palace being, a Champions League club or a club that's competing for the title in the Premier League? It's been a dysfunctional place for a long time. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people who care very deeply about Atlanta United watch a lot of the Premier League. And that's okay. But these are 2 different things. And when Frank DeBoer was hired, the club, Atlanta United, did a very, very good job of touting what he did at Ajax, the unprecedented success that he had in the Eredivisie at Ajax. Well, that sets an expectation. Can Atlanta United be the Ajax of MLS? I think MLS top to bottom is a lot, I don't want to say deeper, but there's a lot more parity in MLS top to bottom than there is in the Eredivisie. Frank's a big name that came from some big clubs. He's replacing Tata Martino, who's a big name, who's doing magic with El Tri right now. And that has raised the bar very, very high. But I think in Frank's defense, you're plugging in Pity Martinez, you're losing Miguel Almiron. Pity is a very nice player, and he's come very close. But when you lose a player of Almiron's quality, that is an enormous hole to fill. You have been really crippled with injuries. I mean, if you look at left back now with Mikey Ambrose going out, you've already lost Bello. Breck Shea was a depth signing that has been pushed into a lot of extra duty because of injuries. Same on the right side with Escobar, someone that Frank has said was a very, very, very key player to the way that Atlanta United was going to play this year. So a lot of things out of his control have gone against him. But again, at some point, you've got to prove it. You've got to put together some positive results. And in my opinion, that really needs to start on Saturday, because on paper, you're not going to be able to blame conditions. You're not going to be able to say that, injuries crippled you in this match. I'm still waiting to see on left back a little bit. New England will be shorthanded too. Mancian got red carded on Saturday. They're very thin on their back line, and now you lose a piece out of that. So on paper, this is a match where Atlanta United should be able to go up there and get a result. If they don't, then I think the questions really start to get noisy, because to me, then there would not be an excuse. Columbus, you could justify it. It's impossible to come back in those conditions. What happened against Cincinnati and to a lesser extent Philadelphia, you have the match compression and the injuries to kind of lean back on. Excuses are kind of over now. And that's why I think, going back to the original question you started with, it's not a must win, but it's very much a need to win for Frank and for Atlanta United on Saturday.
So I think we're both on the same page that the attack feels like it's coming together, and you've seen the number of chances and the quality of chances increase over these last couple of games. Now, a couple of weeks off, we'll see, they hit the ground running again in New England. I had a question last night at an event, and I'd love to get your take on it, about the defensive side of it and the problems defensively. How do you see the defense? Are there problems defensively?
No. I mean, they're tied for 8th in goals allowed right now. If you look at the goal they allowed against Philadelphia, you had a turnover by a midfielder in zone 14. The first goal you gave up in Columbus, that was a breakdown that started in the midfield. I think Atlanta United has defended very well. And in fact, their best player right now, Miles Robinson, is a guy who went out, dominated one of the best strikers in North America in the second leg against Monterrey, controlled the match against Philadelphia, controlled the match against Cincinnati. The goals that Atlanta United have allowed this year, aside from an individual mistake here or there, have not been a product of any kind of systematic breakdown in the back line or the way that this team is defending. So,
yeah, I think it's been those individual mistakes. And that, I think, is the difference. It's not about system. It's about, Julian Gressel losing a mark on the first goal against Columbus. Multiple mistakes on the second goal as you've controlled the play and you get caught against the run of play. Set piece against DC on the first one. Individual mistake by Brad Kazan on the second one. Crazy hop. He doesn't read it well. I'll put the goal against Cincinnati down on Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez, where he stepped to the outside and allowed Kenny Safe to turn inside and hit that passing lane, and it's a turnover in your own half against Philadelphia. Those are not systematic breakdowns to me. Those are individual mistakes that you're getting punished for.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we're talking about giving up 1 goal and a draw to Philadelphia, 1 goal and a draw against Cincinnati. You should be better than that, where giving up 1 goal at home means you're going to draw. Or in the case of the Philadelphia match, put you in a position where you have to get a late goal to save a draw. You've got to be better. Giving up 2 goals on the road, is not totally unprecedented. I mean, if you look at the MLS Cup champions from 2018, how many times did they give up 2 goals or more on the road last year? And they still won some of those matches. The fact that they don't have a win right now has nothing to do with the way that they're defending or the system. It's the fact that they haven't been able to overcome the individual breakdown, the individual mistake that they've had defensively because they can't score goals. But that's not an indictment of the way they've defended. It's an indictment of the way that they're converting in the attack. What gives me a lot of hope, like you said, like I've said, I'll repeat it again, is they're creating way more chances now than they were against Monterrey, than they were against Cincinnati, than they were against DC. Way, way more chances. There's no doubt they're playing better with 4 in the back. It sounds like they're kind of committed to that now. Darren Eales went on 92.9 yesterday and kind of, in a veiled sort of way, made it sound like that they really were committed now to playing 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, but whatever, 4 in the back. So they figured that part out. But no, I mean, the reason why Atlanta United's 0-2-2 in league play right now has nothing to do with the defensive system. It has everything to do with the fact that they have not been good enough to overcome the individual mistakes because they can't score goals.
Who has to step up on Saturday night in New England? Who do you think needs to carry this team forward to a result?
Well, 2 different things. I mean, someone who I think needs to step up, but I don't think needs to carry the team would be Brek Shea. Okay. Just looking at it, I'm really confused about this Bello thing, and I guess we're going to have to get to the bottom of this because it sounds like Bello trained on Monday, did not train yesterday, and then I saw Doug tweet that he was out running before the first team came out today.
Yes.
That tells me he's not playing on Saturday, or it would be optimistic to expect that he would play on Saturday. Do you read it the same way as I?
Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. If he trained Monday, if he fully trained, he didn't just jog, he didn't do stuff off to the side. If he fully trained on Monday and he trains on Thursday, maybe. There's definitely a maybe there. But if he doesn't train Thursday, forget it, and it's probably going to be Brek Shea. Now, one other thing that Doug did tweet out, and we'll talk to Doug on Friday before the match, Parkhurst has been training a little bit on the left and right side at fullback.
Saw that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what happens sometimes. We get really bent out of shape about, well, he's a center back.
Right.
He's a defender. He can play anywhere in the back line. Do you want him to play left back every match? No. You didn't want Mikey Ambrose to play right back either, but you had to do it. What that says to me, though, and the important thing I take out of it, is that it is going to be a 4-man back line.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And if it's a 4-man back line, I would wager that Bello is your starting left back and not Parkhurst, if available. And if it's not Bello, it would be Brek Shea. So that's why I think so. Brek Shea becomes very, very important. And honestly, I think, the fact that Brek would probably have some fresh legs would be very key to this, because the last time we saw Brek with truly fresh legs, it was against Herediano at Kennesaw. Remember, Bello started in Costa Rica. Brek got the start with fresh legs in Kennesaw and played great. Could have been man of the match. Came on in Columbus with the fresh legs, had a scoring opportunity, really made an impact on that match. So here's hoping that Brek Shea, not fatigued, will play a lot better than Brek Shea at the times when he was struggling through the match compression, when you were playing DC, then Monterey, then Cincinnati, then Monterey again, and all. It was just really, really a tough ask for him. So he's someone who needs to step up. As far as someone who would need to carry this team, I think this is an interesting spot for Nagbe. I think Nagbe's been pretty good this year, quietly. And a lot of people have not been talking about how impactful he has been. And I kind of feel like in a match like this, if you want to get something going with Joseph, try to get him a little bit more service, I think Nagbe going forward, maybe in a little bit more of an attacking role, could be very, very key to all of this. It feels like Atlanta United creates more chances when Frank puts Nagbe in a position where he can go forward a little bit more. So I feel good going into this match because Atlanta United's fresh. Conditions are going to be just fine. They're trending in the right direction with the chance creation. But I think you still need to see Nagbe, who is probably one of the more consistent players on this team, just go out and be Darlington Nagbe. I think that would be a real boost, a real benefit for Atlanta United on Saturday.
What worries you about New England?
They're weird.
Yes, I agree.
What worries me is that they're challenging to scout because I think Brad Friedel hasn't really figured out who his best 11 are. And now, like, even with the goalkeeper, like, remember Matt Turner was going to be the next great American goalkeeper under Brad Friedel's tutelage, and he's been on the bench all year. Now Cody Cropper is their keeper. I mean, Carlos Heal's a guy who scares you, and he's someone I've never seen play in person before. He has 3 goals. Here's a Premier League player, someone who's played in Spain, has been very dangerous for New England to start the season. And they have guys that can get forward and ask questions, Bunbury and Heel in particular. But, you know, what's New England going to do with Mancienne now? I mean, he has played and started in all of their matches this year. How do they fill that hole? They have a lot of young players, some of whom we have not seen in person, like DeJuan Jones, who was their first-round Super Draft pick. I mean, he started 2 matches, played in 3 for them. I don't know anything about him other than the fact that he played for Michigan State. So that to me is what scares me about New England. Like, I feel like when you go into a match against Red Bulls or a match against Columbus or a match against DC, as long as Rooney isn't suspended, you kind of know what they're going to look like. I don't really know what New England's going to look like. I can't guess what their 11 and their 18 will be. That's more of a challenge, I guess, for Frank and a scouting standpoint, a video standpoint. But there is always the element of surprise that concerns you a little bit when you go on the road against a team that is scuffling right now, trying to find the answers. They've given up a lot of goals. They've given up 10 goals over 6 matches. But New England is a team that has done an extremely good job drawing fouls, 3rd in the league in that. They take a ton of shots. They're 5th in the league in shots taken, but they haven't put too many on frame. They're 19th in shots on target right now. So they're going to make Atlanta United work defensively. But where the threats are going to come outside of Carlos Heel, I don't know. Because they have a different look every time they play, it seems.
Yeah, they're a tricky team to scout. We know that Brad Friedel's going to value work rate, work ethic. He's going to want guys who are going to work hard. That's about all we know. Sometimes they press, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they try to keep possession, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they play direct, sometimes they don't. There's really not a lot to get out of New England at this point as Friedel's kind of trying to figure it out. The weather's supposed to be better, but how is it looking right now?
Looks great.
Okay.
Low 60s and partly cloudy. Looks really good.
That really changed.
Yeah, well, yeah, because this time last week we were worried if they'd have a nor'easter, it would be low 30s and wind and rain. No, I mean, now again, this is Atlanta United, so never take it for granted until we start the match. But it actually looks really good, and you're playing on turf, so even if there was rain or hard rain or anything like that, you're not going to be able to use conditions as an excuse. You're not going to be able to use a hostile atmosphere as an excuse. I mean, this is going to be as close to a neutral site on the road as you can get for Atlanta United. So I'm glad that we're not going to be lamenting conditions on Overreaction Monday because, and I want to be clear again, what happened in Columbus, Atlanta United did not lose the match because of the conditions, but the conditions made it impossible for them to play the final 60 minutes and come back. That was my beef. That's my issue. I know a lot of people out there still think I'm making excuses. It's not an excuse. It's a reason. But it's good to know that Saturday we're not going to have to worry too much about that.
Yeah, you can't fall behind when you know the conditions are going to deteriorate. They affected the match. They didn't cause Atlanta to lose. There's a big difference between the two. Well, Mike, we'll have you back on SDH on Friday, and later today, you and myself and Jimmy Vance will be on Stoppage Time over at facebook.com/929thegame. Talk to you then.
All right, Jason, good talking to you. We'll see you then.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life, young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, April 10th edition. Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer will join us in just a couple of minutes. A quick update on injuries and the situation around the New England Revolution. This is from Tanner Ribello of the Trifecta Network. Edgar Castillo and Antonio de la Maya are both, it's a little unclear about if they're going to be available this weekend. Now, as Mike Conti mentioned in the last segment, Michael Mancienne on a red card suspension. He's out. De La Maya would be the obvious replacement, but this is Brad Friedel's quote. We'll have to see. He was out on the field a little bit today. This is yesterday's training. We'll see if there's any reaction in how he feels, but we have a good enough squad to cope no matter what is thrown at us. Castillo, on the left side, he missed the trip to Columbus. Friedel sounded a little more optimistic about him. He was out on the field as well. This is from Brad Friedel. He got stepped on and then tried to pull away, had a slight calf issue. Hopefully he'll be in the reckoning this weekend, if not for sure come the Red Bull game. So your back line last weekend, you had to move Brandon Bye over to the left side. He can play on either side in the back. He's far more comfortable on the right. Center back is where it's a little tricky out of who's played so far for New England. Really, your only other option is Andrew Farrell, who is predominantly a right back but can play in the middle. If De La Maya can't go, it's probably going to be Andrew Farrell paired up with Jalil Anibaba. If you are Atlanta United's attacking players, you have to love this situation. If Castillo can't go, and I've said it consistently and I will continue to say it, I think Edgar Castillo last year was a best 11 quality left back for the Colorado Rapids. Smart move from New England to get him. If Colorado was not going to sign him on a permanent deal, New England getting him, bringing him in, good move. All the way around, good move. They had to replace Chris Tierney. Castillo's a good replacement. Injuries happen, you have to deal. But if they're missing Castillo, they're missing Mancienne, which hasn't really been that great this season, but you are missing a starting center back. And you're missing De La Maya, who would be the center back to replace Mancienne, if he's not available, and you're having to move people out of position. Maybe, Zahibo maybe in the back is a possibility. I don't know. I don't know what his expertise is playing as a center back. We'll dig into that this week since it's sounding like it could be a possibility. I think Andrew Farrell as a center back is what happens, though. And if it's Farrell, Jalil Anibaba in the middle, if Castillo gets in on the left and Bye on the right, Bai and Castillo will get forward, and you'll be able to attack behind their back, but you'll be able to put pressure on Andrew Farrell, who is not a natural center back. And Jaleel Anibaba's played very, very well. I still have a few questions about him. I was a little surprised that he's beaten out. Seems like he's beaten out De La Mea, although injuries have factored into it as well. Anibaba's been good for the Revolution, but can he continue to play at that level? Defensively, they've had issues. Atlanta United has to punish them for those issues this weekend. We'll see what Joe Patrick at Dirty South Soccer thinks. We'll get him on the line right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, April 10th edition. Getting ready for Atlanta United and New England this weekend. Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer joins us to continue the preparation. What's up, Joe?
Not much. I'm just looking forward to a game finally happening at some point here. But
I know,
other than
right?
that, yeah, it's crazy. I wrote somewhere in the myriad of places I write, and I can't keep track of them all now. I felt like at the beginning of the season, it was like someone had our faces pressed against a fire hydrant that was just going off in terms of how the games were just coming left and right, and now we're just being dripped enough water for us to survive on, but it's pretty painful.
Yeah, we were trying to drink out of the fire hydrant in the first month, and now it's like one of those really bad squeeze bottles that you can't get to work. That's where we're at these days.
Exactly.
But now we're about to get back to the fire hydrant. It's about to get kind of crazy after this first couple of games where you get 3 games in 3 weeks. Okay, cool. Then it gets really hectic. How do you feel like this team is ready for this type of activity in the next 6 weeks?
Well, I don't know. But what we hear from the players in training is obviously good, but it's kind of the standard things that you would expect to hear from teams. From teams not named Orlando, because when things go south for them, you hear about it. But true. I think that this game coming up against the Revolution will show us a lot about kind of how this team is improving. I think we would have liked to have seen some of that against Columbus, and just due to the conditions of the game, that was kind of impossible to really analyze that game and see what kind of changes the team is making, what kind of progress they're making in certain areas tactically. So I think that's where this game will tell us a lot. And I think you and I and John talked about this a few weeks ago, saying that this would be a game to watch out for. That would really be a marker for where this team is. And I think that, getting a result in this weekend is going to be so important for the team as well. Obviously because of the way the team has struggled so far this season, but when you take into account the opponent, you couldn't be playing a team that's in more of a rut right now, maybe other than Atlanta United, than the Revolution. So I think that it's a big game for the team, both from a tactical perspective and also, it's important for them to get the result that they need.
So you had a chance to talk to a few guys at training today. What was the vibe you got, and who'd you talk to?
We talked to Michael Parkhurst and Gordon Wild today. It was interesting talking to Parkhurst. I wanted to talk to him about kind of how he sees his role playing out this season, how it's been so far. Obviously, against Columbus, we saw him not picked for the first team has he ever been healthy and not picked for the starting 11 in Atlanta? I'm not sure he has.
No.
So it's interesting to see how that will kind of develop, how his role in the team will develop. I think he and Jeff Lorenowitz are both in similar positions where in the past, Tata has relied on those players heavily. And this year under a new manager and these guys are nearing the ends of their careers and they're not shy about, they know that, they understand that. That's just kind of the way this process works, that they're not, regular players for this team anymore. They're kind of more, I don't want to say like they're just pure depth, but they're rotational pieces. And so it's just an adjustment, I think, for a player to kind of adapt to that. I know Parkhurst talked today about how he's actually training in multiple positions now to be that rotational piece, so he can play on the right or left back. If that situation arises, which we've already seen this year. So, I just wanted to kind of pick his brain on that subject and get to know kind of how he's adapting to it.
Yeah, I'm sure there were probably some, quick reactions when that tweet goes out, when that comment gets made about training some at left and right back. But I think you're dead on. If you stay in a 4-man back line, somebody's sitting. It's Parkhurst, it's Robinson, it's LGP, 3 center backs for 2 spots. Somebody's sitting, and whoever's sitting has to be a player who you never know. You only have 18. You have 7 guys on the bench. If something happens, you need that defender to be able to fill in any of the spots along the back line. And Larky getting just a little bit of extra training. I mean, he's played as a right back in his career. Moving over to the left is not as different as you might think, but just getting a little bit of that work there, it makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right. It kind of helps define his role a little bit more going forward.
And something I've seen a lot is people asking, well, can't Miles Robinson play right back? And I think that people kind of make that connection because he's more athletic. He's the most athletic of those 3 center backs that you just mentioned. He seems like the kind of guy who could get up and down the pitch the best and do a job at that position and also defend in those one-on-one situations against opposition wingers. All totally true. That's probably true. But I just don't think he's the kind of player right now that you want to move out of that center back position. He's playing so well. I mean, he's arguably not just been your best defender this season. He's probably been your best player just in general on the team this season. And I don't think Frank de Boer will want to move him out of that position to have him be the guy that is kind of moving around, helping the team in the kind of way that Parker has described this morning. So, I think it's kind of really interesting the way that this situation is kind of shaking out. And last week we talked to Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez, and I think everybody kind of got a kick out of the fact that he said he's now the daddy. He's Miles Robinson's basically the daddy of the back line. Which is true.
I love how that comes out from him. That's just amazing.
I know, yeah, I know. And he said it in English too, which was the best. But, I think that that's true. And I think that that's kind of something where, I asked Parkhurst about that again today, about how that relationship will work. And I think that it's good to kind of start building that now so that you're not coming down the stretch of the season and then you're trying to go into, this relationship with Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez and Miles Robinson playing as a back 2 together.
Yeah, I think you have the comfort level now to where, those roles are defined. And do not ask Michael Parkhurst if that makes him the granddaddy. Don't ask him.
Already happened. Already happened. Yeah.
Oh, man. I knew it was going to happen. But, I mean, honestly, it is pretty well defined. And if Parkhurst is in there with either of the two, everybody knows the roles. If LGP and Robinson are together, you know the roles. That's a great situation to be in. That's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, totally true. And that's where I think that I think sometimes there's a tendency to try to overthink things and try to, as if this were a game of FIFA and you're looking at attributes and you're trying to figure out, which player would be the best in this position. I think it's easier to just simplify it, say, these are our 2 best center backs right now. Let's roll with these guys.
Okay, let's get into something with the midfield. So I think we're all under the impression that it's going to be 4 in the back this weekend, and it's going to be 4 in the back going forward. I think Parkhurst, getting that extra training on the left and right side helps solidify that a little bit. But the midfield, and this was something, the view that we had for the radio call in Columbus was unique. We were right behind the goal. So I had a different view of everything than I've had all season. Mm-hmm. And watching at times, now it did get corrected, but early on, watching the gap defensively between Eric Remedi and the back line is a little jarring, because when we've seen this team play in a 4-man back line under Tata Martino, you saw Jeff Larentowicz very connected to the back line. Are you a little concerned, not so much about the move to 4 in the back from a defensive perspective, but in the midfield, how the team defends?
Well, I think they're connected in some way, and that is if the team is in a back 3. If the team is in a back 3, sorry.
It's all good.
I'm playing with my toys here while I'm talking.
You're throwing things.
Yes. When the team is in a back 3, the 2 central midfielders are going to have more license to move around the pitch because they have that extra man in the back that gives them a bit of it's just a spare man in defense. When they move to a back 4, there needs to be a little bit more solidity. There needs to be I can't find the word here, but there needs to be someone who is tactically cognizant of the fact that there is not a spare man in the back anymore, and they need to keep that space closed in between the midfield and the back line. So I think that that's one of those things. I'm not surprised that it's not kind of fully functional yet in that Columbus game, and I think that that's something that we'll see develop. I think that with the team obviously in such a transition, it's hard for them to nail all these things simultaneously. But I think that that's one of those things where we hope Eric Remedi will be the guy who can be that holding midfielder who sits in front of the back 4 and shields them. And in the past with the back 3, he's been asked to do some more things going forward. And I think that it'll just be a period of adjustment before those tactical nuances get nailed down.
What do you think about the attack on Saturday in New England? Tito Villalba, Julian Gressel, maybe an Andrew Carlton factoring in. We don't know about Pity Martinez just yet. We know he's been there. He's been training. We've seen the pictures. We know Joseph. We know Barco will be in the mix. But what are you expecting out of the attacking group this weekend?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think Pity will probably be good to go. That's just my opinion. I don't know that for sure, and we'll have more information on that tomorrow after we talk to Frank, who will address the media. But, I expect them to continue to develop. And I think that even though there haven't been many goals scored, I think you are starting to see the chances being created. I think that they had, as far as expected goals are concerned, setting aside the penalty, the teams were about even in Columbus. Obviously, it was kind of a crazy game. And like I said, there's not a whole lot you can really analyze from there. But I really like the flow that the team seems to have up top, the way it's developing. I think, one of the tough parts is that Joseph Martinez, I think he's had to make a bigger adjustment than almost anybody else, in that in Tata's system, he was always making that run to the back post. He was basically a poacher, and he was there to score goals, and it was no secret. And I think in Frank de Boer's system, he's more of a linking player, but he's had to adjust to play a little more intricate type of style. He's no longer trying to take a shot on his first touch. He's maybe more likely to let a ball roll past him, take the ball in a half turn, make a dummy, and have more fluidity with that front 3. And I think that's one reason why Pity we haven't seen the best of him, is because of Frank de Boer's system just calls for a little bit more intricacy from those top 3 players. And, when they haven't gelled, they haven't had time to really work on these things in training. That stuff takes a while to come around, but hopefully we see some more of that. And I think it is starting to develop. We've already started to see it, and hopefully it only continues to improve this weekend.
So I asked Mike who on Saturday needs to step up and who needs to carry this team. What do you think?
That's an interesting one. Honestly, I think that the way that this team is operating is running through Ezequiel Barco, which is quite interesting considering the fact that last year he was kind of reduced to a bit part player, a sub off the bench to give you some energy. And I think Frank DeBoer has really seen his talent. And I think that when Atlanta United has played its best this season, I'm particularly thinking of the home leg against Monterrey. I thought Ezequiel Barco was the most influential player in that match. And I think there was a tactical change in that match as well that allowed Barco to have some more freedom. It looked like he was able to actually move completely laterally from sideline to sideline across the field, as where before that we'd seen him more positioned on one side of the field as a part of a front three instead of behind the striker. So I think that this team really kind of flows with Ezequiel Barco's form. And I think that's, I don't want to say it's a ton of pressure on him because, he was brought in to kind of be that guy. But I think that that's kind of who needs to carry this team. And it's a little odd saying that about a 19 or 20-year-old. I can't remember how old he is now off the top of my head, but I think that he's going to be the key for any success Atlanta United has, especially going forward.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, in terms of carrying this team, especially from an attacking perspective, it's Barco. I think they play better through him. And I was having this discussion last night when it comes to Barco and Pity Martinez. I think there's just been a thought, and I don't know, maybe it's just because he's the big money replacement for Miguel Almiron. Maybe it's the number. I don't know. There's been this thought that Pity Martinez is a number 10. He's not really a number 10. He's not that guy that you want with 80, 90 touches on the ball in a match in the middle of the park. I think he's the guy like a Nacho Piatti you want out wide to be able to attack people 1v1. Not a typical winger either, but a guy who's going to cut inside and go to goal. I think Barco's the guy you want with 80, 90 touches in a match.
Yeah, totally agree. But I think Barco's the kind of guy who wants to control the tempo of the game, who wants to
that's a good point.
get on the ball, feel the ball, touch the ball. And yeah, I totally agree with you that, I think with Pity Martinez, you want to get him in 1v1 situations as much as possible. And I think that you do that by putting him in a little wider situation. And because when you're playing centrally, you have so many players around you, it's easy to get closed down. And I think that that's where we see Barco excel is getting out of those tight spaces and passing the ball off to a teammate who can do damage. I think that's why we haven't really seen great assist or goal numbers. He's kind of been more of a Nagby type player where, there's just some players that like playing in the middle and kind of attracting attention and then dishing it off. And so, yeah, I agree with you on Pity. He's not the kind of wide player that Julian Gressel is, for example. They're both probably better in wide situations, but Pity's going to be the type of wide player who wants to come in and create goals. So the way I see him, I would kind of like to see the shape be more of a, if you're going to consider the front three as Joseph Martinez, Pity Martinez, and Barco, I'd like to see Joseph Martinez up top, Pity Martinez almost playing up top as well alongside of him, but maybe just in a wider position, similar to what we've seen in the past with Tito Villalba playing as a wide high forward that's a goal scorer, and then play Barco in behind them and give him again that room to roam laterally.
Finishing up with Joe Patrick, Dirty South Soccer. Let's take a big look at MLS right now. What are your surprises so far? It's over a month in, and from a positive and a negative perspective, what has stood out to you so far?
It's a good question. I think, one of the surprises for me is just how poorly some of these top teams have played. Some of the teams that, we thought that were going to be, some of the teams that I thought were going to be impressive have struggled out the gates, and maybe CONCACAF Champions League has some to play in that. And I know it has for Atlanta United. So that's one thing that has surprised me. I've loved what Dallas is doing. I I think that the new manager there is doing a great job. Paxton Pomykal has been so fun to watch. I'm really loving. There's also Georgi Mihailovic in Chicago. These types of young midfielders are just, to me, they're the most enjoyable kinds of players to watch because they're carrying out some of the toughest tasks on the field for, just tactically, physically, for these players. So yeah, I think that those have been two points that have been really fun for me to watch. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch as much MLS around the league this season. I feel like every weekend I'm trying to catch up on stuff I missed. So I wish I could say I have been following the rest of the league in more detail. But from what I have seen, I've loved watching. I think that these teams are really developing these young players and actually getting them ready to actually contribute to the first team, as opposed to kind of saying they're developing them and then letting them leave on a free to some team in Europe.
Yeah, DC United, Luciano Acosta. That might happen. That's what you're backed up against right now with him again.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
So I think the reason, and everybody might not know this, that you've not had quite as much time, is you're on the Braves beat these days for 92.9 The Game. How's that been so far?
It's been interesting. There's been a lot to learn in terms of the way that media is structured. It's much different than soccer. Some parts are more like rigid and structured and rules based, and some things are completely the opposite, where you're just kind of hanging out, talking to the manager before a game. It's quite strange, but I'm enjoying it. It's great. The pace is obviously much different. The first couple of games, I found myself getting very antsy around the 2-hour mark. Right. Which is I've been naturally ingrained in me that's the time when we should be done here, and instead we're in the top of the fifth. But I really enjoy it. It's been great getting back into baseball. So,
well, let me ask you this to wrap up then. What is something that you've seen from covering the Braves and covering baseball that you'd like to see come to MLS? Something that you think would benefit reporters and media covering soccer that you're seeing in baseball?
That's a good question. So one of the things that I've just loved about baseball is the pregame access. And I don't think you'll ever going to see this in soccer, but I think it really would be very cool, even if you do it every so often, is just to let reporters kind of talk to the manager before the game, get a feel. I know it sounds crazy, but in baseball, that's kind of the best time to talk to the manager is before the game, and you stand on the field and you kind of just get to take things in, and it kind of gives you a perspective because you are able to see the players interacting with each other in batting practice, or if it was soccer, it would be, some pregame warm-ups or stretching or something. And it just, I don't know how to describe it in terms of it giving you a story or whatnot, but it gives you a better feel for the atmosphere of the team when you're down there in those situations. And in soccer, there's really no pregame access at all. It's all postgame. I guess that's been the most fun part for me, is doing the pregame access that I've done.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, there's not really a reason why you couldn't. It's just not part of the culture. So would there be a way to bridge the gap? That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, because the pregame stuff is you're never talking about. Well, you're not talking about tactics or what are you going to do in this game. It's more long form, or if you're working on a feature, you can really go in depth with a coach on a certain player or something like that. So. Yeah, I think it would be fun. I don't foresee it happening at all anytime soon because of what you said is just not part of the way things are done. But I'm enjoying that aspect of it.
Maybe when we re-envision things, sometimes that's something that could be added. What's coming up over at Dirty South Soccer the rest of the week?
So we just had, like I said, I talked to Parkhurst and Gordon Wild. Probably I will be doing the Parkhurst story for MLS Soccer. .com, but I think we'll have something on Gordon Wild, what he had to talk about his position change coming up on the site, and we'll probably get something up as well about the new turf that's been installed at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They got their new turf. That's the story. So look out for that.
Excellent.
And we'll have a video report from what the Frank DeBoer and the other players talk about tomorrow. That'll probably come out tomorrow evening or Friday morning.
Nice. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time, and we'll be talking next week.
Thank you for having me on. We'll talk next week.
We're going to take our final break right here. Any final questions on a Wall Pass Wednesday, get them in at Soccer Down here on Twitter. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Final segment, Soccer Down here, April 10th. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. If you have any questions, get them in now. If you're interested in watching the Seattle Sounders and Colorado Rapids tonight, they have a match scheduled at 9 o'clock Eastern. It's supposed to be on ESPN+. Weather in Denver's not so great. The Colorado Rockies just postponed today's game with the Braves due to inclement weather. It's already been rescheduled for August. Are we going to go through what Mike Conti and I and Kevin Egan and Jillian Sakovitz and Dan Gargan had to go through, and all the Columbus Crew fans had to go through a couple of weeks ago, where they try to get this game in and it just doesn't happen? One reason why that game today has been postponed for the Rockies is northeastern Colorado is under a blizzard warning. Yes, blizzard warning. So far, the Colorado Rapids have not postponed tonight's game. Just reading from a weather advisory, a powerful winter storm will bring heavy snow and blizzard conditions to north central and northeast Colorado today through Thursday morning. Rain and snow showers will increase this morning, with widespread rain expected by noon across the Front Range. Kickoff is 7 o'clock local time tonight. As temperatures fall, rain will change to snow early to mid-afternoon along the I-25 corridor. Conditions will deteriorate very quickly when the rain changes to snow. Roads will become snow and slush covered, leading to slippery conditions this afternoon and evening. Colorado Rapids, Major League Soccer. Go ahead and call this one. Let the Sounders get out of town and reschedule this at a later date. Don't try to force this one in. Don't make fans have to question how safe it is to get to the park tonight. Come on, guys. Make this an easy decision right now. Just postpone. Don't try to force this one to get in. It's not going to end well if you do. You've already had one game in snow on a snow-covered field. Don't add this type of weather to it. Please, MLS and Colorado Rapids. Daniel Price on Twitter asks, who would you want to see as captain now that we might not be seeing Parkey in the lineup on a regular basis? In the starting 11 in the future is what Daniel says. I think Parkhurst is still your captain. When he's on the field, he's got the captain's armband. We saw in the Columbus match, without Parkhurst in the 11, without Jeff Lorenowitz in the 11, it was Brad Gazan who took the armband. I get it. Absolutely. I mean, he's the senior player in that group. I've never been a huge fan of a goalkeeper as captain. Sometimes it's just the best answer, and I think right now it probably is. I do think that Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez takes on a lot of the leadership in this team when Parkhurst isn't in the field, when Lorenowitz isn't in the field, and that's going to have to continue. Whether he's got the armband or not, I think he's going to have to function like a captain on the field for this group. I don't think giving him the armband would be a bad thing at all. I would probably lean towards it over a goalkeeper, and that's nothing against Brad Gazan. That's just personal preference in who I want, speaking for the team in the match. Now, look, it's not as important as it used to be, where only the captain, only the guy with the armband was the one who was supposed to talk to the referee. Look, now everybody talks to the referee. We know that. But I think maybe it would actually help Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez when he talks to the referee, because he has a tendency to speak to referees quite a bit. Maybe giving him the armband might give him a little more authority in doing that. And referees might not frown upon it quite as much. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow solo with you guys. Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic will be joining in. Have some other guests as well chiming in. We'll announce those as we go on social media. The rest of the day, I'll be on 92.9 The Game at 1:20 with John Chuckery and Randy McMichael for my usual Wednesday check-in. I'll be back with Stoppage Time at facebook.com/929thegame with Jimmy Vance, with Mike Conti, with Mena, getting ready for the match this weekend with New England. You can watch that on facebook.com. The audio will be available as a podcast as well later in the day. Also on the SDH network, we'll have the Twos review to get you ready for tonight, Atlanta United 2 against Memphis 901 FC. That's on ESPN News, not on ESPN Plus. ESPN News. You can watch the Twos there, the young group that went up to Memphis for this USL Championship match. Twos review this afternoon will look back at the St. Louis match and get you ready for the Memphis match. We'll also have the USL Championship in 10. Coming up later in the week, we'll have USL League 1 in 10. We'll have the NWSL in 10 to get you ready for the NWSL openers this weekend. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Mucha plata, y'all.